You're listening to the Wanderlust Swingers podcast with Aussie hosts Kate and Daryl. If you're curious about exploring your sexuality or the swinging, hotwifing and non-monogamous lifestyle, you've definitely come to the right podcast. Or maybe you just love travel adventures. Either way, we share our personal, sometimes juicy, sexy stories as well as swingers club and event reviews, interviews with other sassy people, and of course our global swinging adventures. We try to bring you a look into the diverse lifestyle that the swinging and non-monogamous community has. We hope you enjoy. Now let's get into the episode. G'day guys. G'day guys and welcome to episode 161. This is the Fun4two Swingers Club and New Year's Eve with a bang episode.
Could you have come up with anything more cliche than
No,
New
you know
Year's
what?
Eve with a bang?
I was actually going to start this episode by talking about the fact that I know the title is cliche and no fucks are given.
Well, I've just pulled your cliche out and said it's so fucking cliche.
It is cliche, but I like it.
Although it was spent in the Netherlands, and this is, a country where fuckers still blow a lot of shit up.
Oh yeah, so
on
much
New
fireworks.
Year's. Fuck me.
Fireworks and crackers and whatnot. What are they called?
Firecrackers.
Firecrackers.
Fucking hell. You can tell we grew up in a country where public fireworks were not a thing. Yeah, so they're actually not a thing here either. It's actually illegal in the fucking city that we're in. But the Dutch really rules are something they're not big on.
Yeah.
So they blew up a lot of shit.
Right.
A lot of shit. In fact, the number was $300 million. Euro.
How much was it?
300 million euro.
In what?
Euros.
In what?
In fireworks.
I know.
Personal fireworks. Was that your tidbit?
No.
Damn it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I was hoping I might guess one of your tidbits one of these days. Anyway, cultural tidbit, that's what we're into next.
Hold on a second. So this episode is all about on New Year's Eve. We did go to the Fun4two Swingers Club here in the Netherlands, and we spent the evening there. We were also hanging out with Mr. and Mrs. H from the Bedhoppers podcast. So that's what today's episode is all going to be about.
Yeah, but they're and
our Dutchy friends.
Our Dutchy friends.
Which I'm calling Mr. and Mrs. Dutchy. They told us to give them a name, but I just want to call them the Dutchies because they're our first.
Okay. Just number one and number one Dutchy.
No. Oh, yeah, they are the number one Dutchies.
Yeah, number one and number one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be confusing.
Because they're grouse as.
You call it Mr. Number One and Mrs. Number One.
You guys are amazing. Anyway. Cultural tidbit for the Netherlands. This is recent. So this is actually recent news.
Is it recent?
It's recent.
Recent.
Yeah. A recent request to stop the viewing of the red light district. A large majority of Amsterdam's city councillors say that closing the red light district brothel curtains are a good way of reducing the problems currently being caused by the overload of budget tourists. Do sex workers feel respected by being gawked at? One of the council members said. Yeah, I was pretty fucking angry about this. So basically they want to close the curtains, which means that you can't see any of the people that are standing in the
traditional Dutch windows. And instead use a QR code to book in with the sex workers.
You know
what's hilarious?
What's that?
They'd be the only fucking curtains in the Netherlands that are closed.
Yeah.
I mean, big open fucking windows looking into everybody's house that's like the Dutch norm.
That is the Dutch norm.
It's the Dutch norm. So they'd be the only curtains closed in the country.
So the argument here is that the tourist attraction, it's not really helping the sex workers. There were people that were saying, look, sex workers don't really need that. They don't want that. It's unsafe practices. It's being gawked at. It's not great. I disagree with it. I think that if a sex worker wants to be in the window and that's a really big draw of the red light district and a really large way that they make their money rather than being unseen or through a QR code, like that's part of the thing. I don't know. Yes, you're right. I kind of got on my soapbox about this. I was pretty pissed off.
Also, just throwing this out there, you are not a Dutch sex worker. So be interested to hear from anyone, if there's anyone listening, about this particular topic. Actually, about Dutch sex work in general, especially red window work, would be really interesting for us to talk to somebody about that.
One of the things that you and I had spoken about is actually going in and interviewing somebody and paying her or him for their time. Yeah. Because we figured we're going to waste their time, but we really want to interview somebody. So we're going to walk in there and say, hey, what's your rate? They're going to say 150. We're going to say, great. Do you want to be on a podcast?
You've got to accept that they might just tell you to fuck right off because they're not interested in you at all.
That's their right.
Yeah, it is.
Which they're trying to take away from them.
No, they're not taking that right away from them at all.
Anyway.
They're taking other rights, but just not that one.
So let's talk about our revised review, before we do anything about...
Revised review of
Fun4two Swingers Club. If you guys head back and listen to episode 150 in August, you'll hear us talking about a review of Fun4two, a very incomplete review of Fun4two.
Number one Dutchie's fucking sorted that out. Biff, baff, boff. We've got a mud map, everything.
Where we missed 2 very large sections of the club. So head back and listen to that.
We missed half of the club.
We missed half of the club.
On floor space, literally half of the club. Yeah.
So we went to the club for New Year's Eve. The tickets were €218.87. €218.87 for entry on a New Year's party.
Fucking hell. Do we really need to do it down to the cent?
That's how much we paid. So I just want to tell people the real.
Hell. Okay, that's we got it nailed. €287 and
no, 218.87
cents.
Yeah,
cool. So hang on. I've got to ask. They don't have 3-cent coins here, or 1 or 2 cent coins. So how did we fucking pay that?
The beauty of internet banking, darling.
We paid that on in. They didn't just round up.
Mm-mm.
So I want to throw this out there.
I think it's probably
Fun4two in future. Oh no, this is have our credit card charges because we paid on credit card.
I don't think it's credit card. We have actually paid with Ideal, so it's debit. But what I think it is probably like $200 for entry to the club, and the ticket charges, like the ticket
VAT.
Yeah, or whatever, works out to be €18.87.
Probably.
That's what my sneaking suspicion is, but that's what we paid.
Could be.
It is a lot to get into a club. New Year's Eve prices are inflated. How do you feel about it?
So, yeah, it was a lot to get. That's a lot to get.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. But I don't know that I can justify that cost, actually, if I were to look at the club and the night and everything else. It's still a lot of fucking money for one night. But what I can say is it's all inclusive, so drinks, food as well, all night, actually through to 4 a.m.
5.
I think they serve, the lights go on at 4. So I would say that the food would likely stop at 4. Anyway, so it's all the way through to 4 a.m. The food is decent. I mean, it's reasonable food. It's certainly not 5-star, but it's good food.
It's a very good mix of food as well. There's a lot of variety.
A lot of variety. Plentiful, available, not too much of a wait to get into it as well. It was quite good. I mean, but yeah, that's still a lot of dinero for one night.
So I don't want to sound like Mrs. Moneybags.
Fuck. Here we go. Because you're not.
I can justify it.
You're a tight one.
And here's why.
Okay.
When I'm thinking back to the last time we spent New Year's Eve out in a vanilla setting was with our friends, and it was in Singapore, and it was on that rooftop place where we overlooked the fireworks. I realise all of these things.
So a rooftop place in Singapore drinking, overlooking the fireworks. Yeah, okay. So like one of the best places in Singapore.
Okay, stick with me. Before we decided we were going to the club.
Not sure I can. This is the worst comparison ever.
We thought about going to London originally, and the tickets for the New Year's that we were going to go to any of the different places we looked at were £150, not including drinks or food. So that's how I'm justifying it. I'm kind of looking at what else is out there. If we hadn't have gone to the club...
Good point. If we fly, if we spend €300 to fly to another country...
No, I'm talking about the entry tickets.
Surprisingly, the entry tickets are different.
What I'm saying is, if you look at like just going to a New Year's party in a bar, add food, add drinks...
Yeah, but I mean...
I think you would end up at about that.
Then let's compare it to Nigeria.
Right.
Because the only reason I say that is because the Nigerian currency is quite low, right, in terms of its so we could do a lot better there.
If you went into a New Year's Eve party in Amsterdam
at a club. You're being nuts. This is crazy. You can't make an international comparison on a fucking club or on a New Year's night out.
Well, okay, if we went into Amsterdam...
Not without taking the Big Mac index into account at least.
I can justify it.
Yeah, but your justification's based on fucking nonsensicality.
There were 500 people coming to this club. We didn't know that until Mr. and Mrs. H. They knew it, and we had no idea. And they mentioned it when we were at the hotel, and they're like, yeah, I think it's like 500 people. And I was like, surely not. And then I asked the Dutchies, and they're like, yeah, I think it's 500. And they sold out.
Yes.
They did a really interesting thing with the tickets, though. What I will say is they had entrance. So we paid the most because we had the earliest tickets, which was at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Now, there's two areas that I want to mention that we missed during the review.
The first review.
Now,
we have a map that was kindly drawn for us by Mr. Number One.
Yep. The Dutch Village and French Village section. Can you tell people what that looks like?
It's just a Dutch village.
I know, but
there's nothing
it kind of feels
Frenchy.
It feels Frenchy to me, so that's why I put that in.
But it's not.
It's not. It's a Dutch village.
It's a Dutch village.
What does it look like? Explain it to us. What do you think about it?
Looks like a Dutch village. Yeah, it's like little Dutch houses that you can, like, with little doors and like a little street area.
Like how the facade of the...
Yeah, it's the facade, and each one of those Dutch houses is its own little bedroom.
Yeah.
Little playroom.
It's unique.
It is quite cool.
It's fucking cool.
It's cool. It's like, yeah, it makes you feel like, actually, it made me feel Dutch because the house was, probably the equivalent size to your average Dutch man. Because it's smaller.
It had a little fake street, and was there like a fake little, or, a lamp in the middle? Or am I misremembering that? And then it has the little houses and like a cul-de-sac.
It's got all those things.
It's so fucking cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
It's really, really unique. And in each of the little, like one of the little areas had a cage on the inside and like a lockable cage door. Like
it's all little Dutch houses with and red lit as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them are red lit. So.
That's so cool. It's like
we
a movie
saw that
set.
last time.
We saw the outside, but we didn't go in. But I just thought it was only that. I just thought it was a wall with fake.
It's like a pseudo miniaturized movie set because it's not full size.
No, it's not. But it's fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
Okay. The other area we missed, the wet area and the tantric area. Can you explain that?
The wet area is the area where the pool is, jacuzzi, spa, showers.
Yeah.
Some good showers there as well. Some group showers, I would say, given the size of them and the multiple shower heads. And then through to the tantric area, which is, I would agree now with Mr. and Mrs. Number One. They said it's the best part of the club, and I would totally agree.
Yeah.
It's a really well laid out place that's really...
Sexy.
It's sexy, but it's also very chic, I mean that in two ways. It's chic as in it's really well laid out and cool, but it's also chic like you feel like a chic while you're... because it's there's a lot of drapery and stuff hanging, and it feels tent like in some way, big tent, like a big fuck off room tent.
Unlike the other two play areas where they're kind of sitting atop of the dance floor, so you get the music off the dance floor. The tantric is in a whole other building.
Mm-hmm.
So's the wet area. So I think what I'm getting to is the fact that it's extremely quiet.
It's extremely quiet. It's quiet in the sense that when you walk in there, you start to whisper naturally, like a fucking library.
Yeah, and you don't get the doof of the music and stuff.
Or a tantric room.
Yeah. So you walk across this bridge.
So for those of you who get lost, look for the door with a huge penis and balls on it.
Big dick on it.
Yep, that's the one. Just pull on that door.
Get that big dick energy.
Pull on that door handle just once.
Don't lick it.
Don't lick it, for the love of God. And through the other side, you get to the wet area, and then you go downstairs and around to the left, and you're then on your way to the tantric area.
Past the sauna. Yeah, and then into the tantric. It is beautiful. I will say that. When we first walked
really cool,
over that bridge, there was nobody in there, and there was nobody in the hot tub or anything, and it was just the lights were perfect. Everything was working for me. When I was walking in there, I was like, fucking, this place is brilliant. No wonder when we did the last review back in August, the Dutchies were like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah,
how do you two have a podcast?
You fucking idiots.
You're a bunch of idiots where you talk about things that you don't know anything about.
It was just you. It wasn't those... So,
they blame me, not you.
Yeah, absolutely, because they know that you control this whole shit fight, right?
But beautiful areas, definitely highly recommended. If you guys ever come to the Netherlands and you want to go to a club.
Yeah, the whole club's epic. I mean,
Fun4two in Rotterdam.
It's a great club. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt.
Yep.
Let's talk about our evening. Let's talk about our whole New Year's. It's fresh in your mind because it's just happened.
Yeah, let's start with...
Let's start with checking into the hotel and the look on Mrs. H's face when something was said to her.
Oh, fuck yeah, that was
fucking
hilarious.
priceless.
Yeah, so we had to book from the hotel we're at, this hotel becomes almost a takeover hotel, I suppose, that night. Not a sexually oriented takeover hotel, but just...
There's so many people there.
So many swingers there. Still a few families and stuff, but the majority of people that are there are lifestylers, I would say, or at least in some way engaged in the lifestyle.
Yep.
And we'll end up at the club later that night. But when we checked in, so we checked in different locations. For starters, they had oliebollen on the counter.
Yeah,
which is a Dutch New Year's treat.
Snack.
I mean, it's a treat.
Yeah.
It's fucking dusted in sugar. It's a.
You don't want to eat too many because you may, have a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep fried dough dusted in sugar. So
Ooh,
yeah,
baby.
it's fucking glorious to eat. But if you eat a few of them, your head will explode after your stomach does. So anyway, we'd just been talking about those, so I took one over to Mr. H. I was actually over that side to witness the...
Yeah, I wasn't. I was still doing the payment and checking in.
The gas that came. So as we were over there, we're talking about the bus, and they have to write your name down for the bus to get there and get back. The earliest bus to get there was 8:45. 8:45.
So it could get us there right on open, basically.
Yep. Basically, we still had to wait in a reasonably sizable line, but I'll come back to that in a minute. But then the they said you need to book your return, and the earliest return bus was 5 a.m.
No, 4.
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, it was 5. Anyway.
Because I was trying to make it a positive, like, well, at least it's not 5.
And Mrs. H's response to that was,
In the morning?
It's like, yeah, I mean, you're checking in now to the hotel at 3 p.m. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be in the morning. She's like, what the fuck are we going to do until 4 a.m.? I could think of a few things, but they still didn't tide us over to 4 a.m. on the night.
It was such a funny reaction because we also checked in at 3 p.m. So that was the first available check-in time. So one would assume we were the first few people getting there.
It was also fucking loud. It was loud enough that everybody who was standing there at getting checked in at the time swung around and laughed at what she said. So yeah, we were all a little surprised at the 5 a.m. return. But thankfully the number ones, they had the inside track and that, and they said, look, we've never had to book a return.
Yeah.
And we've never had a problem getting a return. And they were on the money. Thankfully.
What I will say about this hotel, I mean, aside from the fact that, yes, at New Year's, the percentage of people going to the club were higher, but this hotel does a shuttle to Fun4two all the time.
All the time. They got banging rooms as well.
It's fucking
the
great.
room we went into, it was fucking
The restaurant
awesome.
is nice. The bar is
lovely.
nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice hotel.
The lobby's nice. The room was lush.
Yeah.
I can't fault it. And they do this shuttle to the fucking local swingers club, even though they're not really affiliated in any way, shape or form. And actually a Dutch family own this chain of hotels. I think that's just brilliant.
It's just a smart business move, really.
It is a smart business move, yeah.
Really smart business
They
move.
probably actually hate us all, but they're like, well, they bring in,
I don't think so.
so much
I
revenue.
don't think they give a fuck. Again, the Dutchy mentality of whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. So we head to the bar. We go up and check into our rooms. Again, they were really lush, really large. I was very surprised because we got the cheapest room in the hotel and it was really, really nice. So
I don't know whether we never asked whether we were upgraded or not, but it was a fucking nice room for a baseline room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get to our rooms and we head down to the bar for some pre-drinks because as part of booking directly with the hotel, they give you a free drink. So we're like, let's go get our free drink.
Which is a really good way of getting
you into the fucking bar.
A booze hag like you into the bar to then spend another
Mrs. H was all about it as well. Free drink while we not.
Yeah, but then you both proceeded to drink another 4 unfree drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it was more than that. But
yes, it was much more than that. It was fucking like 3 bottles of wine between 5 people.
So we head down to the bar for pre-drinks. Now, this was super funny because I was watching everyone watching everybody else.
Yeah, it was funny because everybody in that bar, with the exception later in the evening or later on, 2 families turned up, but everybody in that bar was in the club later that night.
Yep.
Yep.
And I was overlooking. I got to be honest. I was looking at people's phones. Like I'm not going to lie. I'm gonna fucking own it.
SDC trying to figure out who was who.
I was trying to signal Mr. H at one point in time because there was a couple sitting to our left, and I could see he had SDC up on his, which is a dating site, by the way, very popular here in Europe. He had it up on his phone.
It's very popular here in the Netherlands.
Because
that's where it was founded.
Started.
Although it's now also very common in parts of the US.
This guy was on his SDC and like looking around the room and then like scrolling, and I was signaling Mr. H who was sitting across from me like, like look over there. He's like, what? He leaned in. He's like, what's going on? And then later, as we got up to leave, I saw another 2 couples on SDC again doing the exact same thing.
Can I say though, your signalling efforts are not great because
you mean the obviousness of them?
Well, no, the fact that they're obvious but not obvious all at the same time, which is pretty impressive. This will come into play again later when it comes to getting off a bracelet.
Oh fuck! I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on.
Right. So Mr. and Mrs. Dutchy arrive. Right. We see them come in. They're joining us for a drink. He had to go home.
Yeah, this is part of the best story ever of the evening.
This is a hashtag swinger fail if I've ever.
Oh man, it was so funny that you could. I know exactly what the conversation in the car was.
Well, explain what happened.
So Mr. Number One forgot his suit for the formal evening of the club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he had to turn his car around and drive all the way back to Utrecht to pick it up, which is, frankly, it's only a 30-minute drive, but still...
Pain in the ass.
Pain in the ass, right? But, yeah, on the way down, he asked the question, which I think was the primary mistake, was, you packed my suit, right?
And her response, when she was telling the story, was, why the fuck would I pack your suit? So he had to go back and get his suit. But, I mean, we did all right out of that deal because we ended up with Mrs. Dutchy for like the hour that he was gone.
I don't know that we would have got, if we had both of them, it wouldn't have been any less all right.
No, I know, but I'm saying it would have been worse if they both went back. Like we did all right out of the deal.
No, we did, absolutely.
Scoring her for an extra hour.
For sure.
So we sat there having drinks for what I would say was way too long. Well, we were intending to go down there for like one free drink, maybe a second free drink, and then obviously when we had the Dutchies arrive and then he came back. How do you get a second
free drink when you've only got one fucking free drink?
Because you bought a drink, so I got your ticket for free, so that means I got 2 free drinks.
Yeah, that's not how it works, though.
That's math.
No, that's
and
not.
Science.
That is.
It's also common sense, I think.
So wrong.
Because we had 3 bottles of wine in our room, so we sat there for a really long time. We ended up having snacks, we had drinks, whatever. Now, it was, I think, so the bus was leaving at, 8:45, and I think it was about 7:30, 7:45 when we were like, we've got to go get ready. And I have to put it to her, Mrs. H actually got ready in an hour.
Yeah, which is like so...
Unheard of.
I mean, right?
Unheard of.
Everyone was shocked.
Everybody
I think even she was.
So that was an amazement. I will at this point say that we also took 0 fucking photos yet again. You and I took 0 photos and we didn't take any photos together with Mr. and Mrs. H, and we're just a fail really at taking photos together. We never do it. We didn't take any photos this weekend. We suck at it.
I'm not going to hurt myself over it. I can deal with it. It's not, it's not life-threatening.
So we get in the shuttle, we head to the club, we're getting ready to check in. You were talking about the line before, and there was a dude there who I would say was swinger bag extreme.
Yeah, he had a fucking rolly bag. I was like, yeah, you motherfucking gangster. What have you got in there? Given after, what is it, 9? No, sorry, what's the time you have to dress down? 10?
11, I think.
11, okay. So, yeah, given 11 o'clock you've got to dress down, it seemed like having a rolly bag might have been a bit of overkill. But, hey, look, whatever, it worked for him.
Yeah. I will say the line moved surprisingly quick.
The line moved very well. They did a fucking great... I would say there would have been 50 people in front of us when we arrived.
At 9 p.m. So
at 9 p.m.
When the doors are officially supposed to open.
And they would have gotten all 50 of those people done in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It was really impressive. I was very impressed with how quickly they managed to move that line along.
Yeah, they were really on the ball. You couldn't fault that. Like,
absolutely. I mean, it looked, when we first arrived, I'm like, fuck, we're going to be standing here for like 2 hours. No chance, man. They had that shit sorted. So congratulations. It was really well done.
It was really, really well done.
Yeah.
We get into the club, we go up, we put our shit in the lockers, and we head straight down and we go to dinner. Because the idea was, okay, we're here quite early in comparison, because as I said before, they had these tiered tickets where you could come in at 9, you could come in at 10, 11, 1 a.m, 2 a.m. That was the times that you could enter the club. So they were kind of spreading everybody out.
Yep.
So we were like, okay, if we get in and we get dinner and then we can kind of be ahead of the curve.
We should explain though, we were intending to go there with all of the group that we were going with, right? So the number ones
But they were on a shuttle bus half an hour after us,
so they unfortunately missed the same shuttle as us. So we had to make do.
Yeah.
That kind of, I suppose, changed the evening somewhat as well, right? Because we were there, so we'd already had some drinks, we already had something to eat, and then those guys, they came later and they didn't have something to eat and they were ready to do some dancing. So we kind of missed the number ones for most of the night.
Yeah, which was a bit upsetting, but I spoke to them the next morning and they're like, it's kind of how these things go. But, we were hoping that they were going to kind of join in and hang out with us as well as Mr. and Mrs. H.
Yeah, I mean, not that they were going to join in and hang out with us, but we would all be able to hang out together. Yeah. Sorry, the phrasing there sounds like they did something wrong.
No.
That's why I just fucking corrected it.
So we did have some dinner. Now, this is where I want to say that Mr. and Mrs. H and I, winningest of the night.
Oh, yeah, was it?
Because I leaned over and kissed him.
You did.
And we decided, as a result of that, we were the first 2 people to kiss, and so we've decided that we are the winningest.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody wins in this scenario.
We're the winningest of the peoples.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were, so Mrs. H and myself were kindly taken by surprise, mainly because it's never a thing that you guys are the first to interact at all. Yeah, okay, you're the winningest.
Excellent. I'm glad you said that.
That's 1 for 10. Well done.
All evening, I would say that we were, as a group, ahead of the curve. What I mean by that was we got in and had dinner pretty early.
Yep.
Immediately after dinner, we decided to do a tour of the club before it was what, Daryl? Too heaving.
It was already heaving, though. You're already complaining about the heaviosity of the...
But we decided we were going to, walk around and do it because Mr. and Mrs. H have never been there. We wanted to see the parts that we'd stupidly missed before. So straight after dinner, we grab a drink and we go upstairs and we start taking a tour of all of the facilities. We're walking around, we're showing Mr. and Mrs. H the parts that we knew.
And then showing them the parts that we didn't know.
together and kind of, having a bit of fun there. And then we sat down upstairs.
By having a bit of fun, you don't mean playing. You just mean like enjoying the
enjoying the
tour.
company and walking around and like going, fuck, this is cool. And wow, look at this.
Yep.
And then we sat up in the upstairs playroom for a little while chatting to Mr. and Mrs. H. And then our other friends, J and C from the UK, popped along and we all sat down and had a bit of a chat for a while.
They did. Yes. And we did. So it was nice to just sort of hang out there for a bit.
And there was nobody kind of really up in the playroom. Like everybody was down in the dance floor area
Yes.
and the dinner area. So it was quiet up there at that point in time.
It was very
So that was
quiet.
quite nice. Then we decided we're going to get a drink and then we decided we're going to change into lingerie earlier. And this is what I mean by the fact that we're ahead of the curve because with the times that you then have to get changed into lingerie, the locker area is also going to be really crowded. So rather than wait until they do the song and we have to change into our lingerie, we decided to do it earlier where there was not very many people in the locker room.
Yep.
I think that turning point was great for the evening because I think that our whole idea and concept of getting in there, getting the dinner, doing the tour, stopping and having a bit of a chat and a drink was lovely, and then getting into lingerie on our terms and then kind of being already ready was awesome.
So this is an interesting change for me, right, when we're talking about the whole dress down requirement, because I think I've been on record more than once talking about how I find dress downs obnoxious. Forced dress downs obnoxious.
Yeah.
I think I might be coming around to that, honestly, because the whole idea of the dress down now is becoming more appealing, mainly because it's forced for both, which is important.
Very
because
much
most of the time it was...
Well, remember that castle party in Croatia? It was just the women had to.
Yeah, so I have a problem with that inherently. But so both people have to dress down in this club, which I think is important to start. But also it pushes you to transition from conversation to something a little more sexy.
And whether that's just looking at other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But the other thing is, people say, well, what if I don't want to do that? Well, that's fine. I mean, there's no, in terms of the sexiness, I think for me, that would be the time of the evening that I would leave.
Right.
Like if I thought I'm not happy with how this is running, then I would make the decision to leave.
Early.
At that point. Right. Because if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. And getting dressed down is not going to change that. So that's one thing. But I'm kind of starting to come around, which I'm a little surprised at. But the reason for that is where were we recently where there wasn't a dress down and we kind of got lost in just conversing, right? We spent all night fucking talking and didn't really go any further, even though we wanted to. Everyone in the group wanted to. The transition, we just didn't transition. So anyway, it was I think I'm coming around to it, but maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm not sold on it yet, but I'm starting to see some sort of reason for it.
Now, when we were walking around, I think this is when we were on our way to the locker room to actually get dressed down, actually. I walked up the stairs. I had Mrs. H directly behind me. I think I was holding her hand, actually, because, again, the stairs in the Netherlands, they're cliffs, and she was wearing heels, and I was like, fuck, if she breaks her ankle, like...
They're all the same. You have to treat the stairs the way you every staircase in the Netherlands should be treated with
the utmost respect.
With the potential to plummet to your death. That's just a requirement.
So I think I was holding her hand and we walked upstairs and there was a gentleman. No, I'm not going to call him that, actually. I'm not. There was a person who was standing over on the balcony.
A man.
He had his phone out and he was filming the entire dance floor. He had video and I could clearly see that he was filming the entire dance floor.
Might I add that you're not supposed to have your phone in that area at all.
No.
Yeah.
And I turned around to him and said, "Excuse me, sir, you can't do that. Please stop filming people," right? And at this point in time, his other half, a female, comes over, grabs the phone off of him and goes back to her seating area, obviously seeing that there's going to be some sort of altercation in terms of like a discussion. Now, what I do want to just quickly say is that the community does need to be self-policing, even though the rules of the club are there, even though they've got security members, they've got staff, they've got everybody there looking out. I think it is a level of responsibility for us to be self-policing, and you see something, you say something, as far as I'm concerned. There wasn't an aggression in my voice. It's not like I was like, "Hey, fuckwit." I mean, internally, I was saying, "Hey, fuckwit, stop doing that. Stop breaking people's consent, you piece of crap." But what I said was, "Excuse me, sir, please stop filming people. You're not allowed to do that."
Kindly stops filming people.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. So we're in lingerie. We go back downstairs to go to the dance floor. Now, I was really interested in dancing. I know that Mr. and Mrs. H aren't really dancey people.
But the number ones were down there as well. And it was a chance for us to catch up with them and possibly do some dancing and catch up with and meet some other people as well while we were there. but it all went tits up because there was no fucking room to dance.
There was no room. We tried for like 2 seconds and then we looked at each other and went, you know what, let's go to the playrooms.
Yep.
And which playrooms did we decide to go to?
The Tantra playroom.
Yeah. And I have to say, again, because at this point we're still ahead of the fucking curve. People are only just starting to dance.
Yep.
Some people are in lingerie, not really many. So a lot of people are still trying to get dinner. Full on ahead of the curve. So when we went to the tantric room...
If there was a curve, we were ahead of it.
We were ahead of it.
Yeah.
In front of it, leading
we
the
were
curve.
ahead of it, in front of it, around it. The curve was basically straight for us.
What it meant was we scored the best room. The best room.
The best room in the playroom.
The best room.
The best playroom in the room. So that room is elevated by like 3 steps, 4 steps maybe. Just as I said before, those steps should be treated with the utmost because all of the steps in the Netherlands are cliffs to which you will plummet down, which you saw fit to give a chance at later in the evening, getting out of the playroom, decided to nearly fucking fall down them. It's elevated, that's one thing, but it's got enough room in there for, I'm going to say, like 2 double beds. But it's only got 1 bed in there.
Mm-hmm,
so it's a really big space. So it's a really big space that you can kind of get around and move around in, and it's also, I'd say, covered to judging by the number of people that were waiting outside for when we left.
It is enclosed in the sense that it has curtains all the way around it, all around the balcony of it.
Yeah, it's tent-like. It's a fabric tent.
I don't know if the bits near the stairs were kind of pinned back, and I actually moved them to be closed. And I don't know whether that's something that is normal, permitted, whatever. But it meant that
there's curtains there, so I'm going to say it's okay.
It meant that we had this elevated, really nice. The lighting was perfect.
Pseudo see-through, somewhat sexy. Somewhat,
the music, the music was in there like nice and low. It had little fake kind of the lights looked like fake candles, like it was that dim kind of shadowy appearance.
Yeah, so it was lovely.
It was fucking perfect. It was a really nice room.
Perfect's a big stretch, but it was lovely.
That's where we decided to play. That's where we decided this is where we're going to.
That's where you decided to play.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Most of us laid down. We're going to have a nap. That's not true. Kind of true.
So let's talk about our play.
Okay.
Now, as we were entering, and there's this one bed in the middle, and we have a bunch of towels, and there's massage oil in the room, and it's a tantric area.
There's actually 2 massage oils in the room because for some reason, somebody, pointing at you, thought it would be a good idea to steal to instruct somebody else to steal a massage oil from another room to bring up into that room, only then to discover that there was massage oil in that room as well.
Yay.
So there were 2 massage oils. Anyway, so you then decided to propose that Mrs. H should lay down and receive a 6-handed massage, which is exactly what happened.
Yep. So we had her on her back, on her belly at first. So she was back and butt exposed, and all the 3 of us, Mr. H and you and I, were all massaging.
Is that 3 of us?
Yeah, the 3 of us. We were all massaging
fucking math,
Mrs.
man.
H, and it was funny seeing the different massage styles. I guess you were kind of up near Mrs. H's head, which I'll talk about in a second. At first, I was like, well, let's give her like a nice sensual kind of rub over. And then it started progressing more and more and more into like sluttiness, like going very, very close to her labia and then like away.
Very close?
Well, this is my point. I think that the 3 of us weren't on the same pathway because I remember at one point I was like massaging down her calves and I was like, yeah, getting serious, massaging in her calves. I look up and your cock is in her mouth.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't my fault.
That's what was
I was
funny.
massaging beside her and she grabbed my cock and pulled it into her mouth.
Yeah.
And me being the gentleman that I am not going to refuse a young lady's advances.
Correct.
Yeah. So that happened. Yeah, no, you were on a very different... I mean, it's hilarious that you think, ooh, we might just give a 6-handed massage in the middle of a swingers club on New Year's Eve. And let's just start with it being actually tantric, where we...
That's what I was thinking.
Spend time.
That's what I was...
Let's spend 2 hours just slowly, seductively teasing her to the point where she's
gagging
incapable of... Well, she was fucking gagging for it after 5 minutes. She reached out, grabbed my cock and pulled it into her mouth. I mean, that's literally gagging for it. God love you.
We were talking later as we were sitting there kind of decompressing after the play session, and I think Mr. H said something about Mrs. H putting the cock in her mouth, and she tried to be all like, well, no, he put it in my mouth, and Mr. H was like, no, dear, You grabbed it and put it in your mouth. Like, I remember that.
I think there was consent on both sides. Let's say that.
No, I just thought it was really funny that she was like, no, he put it there. And Mr. H was like, no, it happened to be there. And then you were like,
It calls her on her bullshit. That's what good husbands do.
Now, there was, as you mentioned before, there was some bracelet tomfoolery that went on. I was wearing a really sparkly diamante bracelet, which wasn't going to go well with the sensual massage and the massaging oils. And I leaned across to Mr. H and I was like, no, take my bracelet off.
No, you just rubbed it against his leg, actually. Because that's some sort of signal. And he's like, what the fuck do you want?
Yeah. I will say that this PlayStation, again, because of the lack of sound in the environment, the way the environment is, the fact that we were doing the sensual massage, we all immediately fell into the place of like whispering and like hand signal. Again, not really discussing that to begin with, but it just kind of happened. Like, it's just the natural way, I think, to be, right?
Yes. Then you decided also it was time to roll over.
Yep.
And then it went from what you were expecting to be tantric to more just playing with all of the bits that get her very, very excited.
Yeah.
Yep. And kissing and I said to you, you should sit on her face. And you immediately said no. And then Mr. H said, I think that's a good idea. And you've gone, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. It was funny though, because when we were decompressing about this too, we had, once we rolled her over, again, sensory deprivation, so it's not so, bright for her. We put a towel over her eyes, but there's also, we forgot to mention, a complete mirrored wall on the other side.
On the back wall.
And it was really funny. She was like, yeah, when I couldn't see anything that was happening to me.
I was looking at this in the mirror. I was looking at myself getting massaged.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So we spent a bit of time massaging her actual body.
Well, then Mr. and Mrs. H and I were actually in tune together, massaging her labia and her clit and things like that. So he would go up and across, and then I would immediately follow with my hands up and across.
Yeah, I don't know. You were also going down on her, and he was going down on her.
That's right. We're taking turns. You probably sort of just had your dick in her mouth, not doing much. And so Mr. H and I were really putting in.
That's exactly what I was doing. I was just up there getting a blowjob, just sitting back, fucking arms behind my head. She was occasionally feeding me grapes.
Thrusting every now and then.
I mean, I didn't need to. She was bobbing her head.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bobblehead.
And then, yes, I did go and sit on her face for a little bit while I think you guys were going down on her at that point in time. But the focus was pretty well on Mrs. H. Yes. And I can't say that she was hating it.
No, not at all. She seemed to be very, very okay with it.
And then I
put on a condom.
Yes, you put on a condom and started fucking her.
Yep.
And we were still, Mr. H and I were still kissing her, sucking her nipples, doing that sort of thing. And then he wanted me to fuck him. Fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty nearly orderish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
You actually quite liked that. Yeah, it was quite orderish. Well, I mean, that's kind of hilarious to say, but he's like, get on top of me and fucking ride me. And you were like, yes, I will. So he then put on a condom and you got on top of him and rode him. And you were riding away. And then he's like, nah, fuck this, roll over, if I remember correctly.
Well, actually, hold on. Before we get to that, I was sucking his cock for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you did. Sorry, I forgot about that.
So I was sucking his cock, and I do have to say that the next day, I think, or that evening, when we were, again, decompressing, he did say to me, like, I don't think you've ever sucked my cock before.
No, that's right. Yeah, sorry. And because you nearly got him off.
Yeah.
Sucking his cock.
Well, we assume.
He tapped you on the back of the head and said, fucking stop, for the love of God. I think that's a close call.
Yeah, it was. I think this part of our play too. Yeah, I remember it. So I'm sucking his cock and just massaging his balls and that sort of stuff. You're fucking Mrs. H. But what I can hear is this movement outside of the tent area, or the
occasional head popping in.
The raised. You can start to hear moans. You can start to hear people playing.
Yeah.
You can start to kind of get, again, this sensory just noise, really sexy noises happening. We can't see what's going on out there. We know there's people out there. We know that they're fucking because they clearly are having a good time. And so when we were at this point in our play, I think it was when the playrooms, the tantric rooms started to get a little bit busy. So
yes, agreed.
So I'm sucking Mr. H's cock, and then that's when he was like, I want you to fuck me. And that's when it kind of progressed into me fucking him. What was the view like? So you've got the mirror on your left-hand side. You're fucking Mrs. H. Directly next to you, I'm fucking Mr. H.
I got to say, I'm spending most of my time looking at Mrs. H in this particular instance. We were talking, and I was looking, so I'd look over every now and again, but you guys were low compared to us, so I kind of would have had to have looked backward over my shoulder to see you. So it just wasn't the right environment for me to be able to look really, really well, basically.
I will say about fucking Mr. H, I like him coming.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
It does. He's got a good orgasm.
He does have a good orgasm. I really, really enjoy that.
Yep, agreed. So yeah, and I actually thought that this was the first time he'd come in you or come with you, but it wasn't. I was corrected on that later. But yeah, it was really sexy to hear him get off. Yeah, and you as well. I mean, you both came.
I got under Mrs. H.
Yeah, while I was fucking her. That's right.
And so I was like playing with her clit while you were fucking her as well.
Yeah, and sucking his cock as well.
Yeah, and I look at me.
Yeah, doing everything.
Patting my head and rubbing my stomach or whatever.
Yeah, you can't even say it without knowing what it is. No, you got it right. It's patting your head, rubbing your stomach. Yeah. So that was kind of earlier on, but yeah, I mean the visuals are good, but the positioning wasn't great for me to be able to see everything that I normally would have. But it was really nice.
We also watched Mr. H fuck Mrs. H.
Yes, we did.
And he whispered in my ear, "Come and taste his wife." And so I was trying to go down on her whilst he was fucking her as well and licking her clit.
Your head's too big though.
My head's too big. Curses.
Your head's too big, and your tongue's not long enough for that shit. Yeah,
I put in the effort of trying.
Yeah, but I'm sure you got some. I'm sure you managed to taste his stomach.
I was
his belly. You tasted his belly. That's about it. Because your head's too big for you to fit in. There
was definitely a lot of effort. I was putting in the effort. I did. I was not winning any points for getting anybody off. That's what I'm saying. I made contact on a number of occasions.
Clitoral contact
on a number of occasions, but I definitely wasn't winning any awards for any orgasming at that point.
Yes, agreed. So I'd actually Mrs. H rolled over onto her stomach and we were talking for a while, and then I decided I wanted to fuck her again, so I did.
Yeah, that was one of my, there's funny things that get said during play sessions.
That line from Mr. H?
No, from Mrs. H. Oh. So she was lying on her belly and we were all just kind of lying around and naked and rubbing each other and stuff like that.
Touching each other is probably a better way to put it rather than rubbing, yeah.
Touching each other, and then you, like the bandit you are, put a condom on and came over and started fucking her from behind, and immediately she turns to Mr. H and said, "He's wearing a condom," and all three of us are like, "Yeah, we know." In her infinite wisdom.
Yeah.
How long do you think the play session kind of lasted?
Well, the play session wasn't actually that long, but we were in that room for quite some time. So the play session would have been, I'm going to say 35, 40 minutes. But we were in that room for, I'm going to say a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
At least an hour and a half. 2 hours maybe, because it was a fucking lovely room. I mean, I could have just went to sleep in
massaging
there.
Massaging and hanging out. Yeah. And
by the way, we fucked in the new year.
We did, actually. That was another thing. So because we were ahead of the curve, we left the dance floor at whatever time it was. And I think towards the end of our play session,
somebody looked at their watch. I think Mrs. H looked at her watch and it was 5 minutes to.
Yeah.
And we fucked straight through
we fucked through the new year.
Through the new year, straight into the new year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm saying, even though it was very cliche.
And I think my first orgasm of the new year was actually in Mrs. H.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's the first time for that as well.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had that before, right?
No, we haven't.
There you go.
Another new one. Really nice play session though. I liked the fact that we were moving around and intertwined and having a good time, kind of all of us. That was really, really nice. Those kinds of play sessions, I guess.
It was only one bed. Cunts have to share it.
It's kind of what I aim for when we talk about having that four-way connection and having a play session.
And having fun.
Yeah. And kind of laughing and joking around.
It was good.
Now, at the end of the play session, because we were in this room and we wanted to maybe sit there for another 20 minutes and relax, you decided you were going to start making noises.
Yeah, I did, because it was quiet. So I started working.
Because we were quiet. Everybody else was fucking. You could hear them outside.
I was working on my orgasm noises.
Yeah.
I think I had some really good ones as well. Certainly to the outside world, it sounded like I'd had a good orgasm a couple of times.
Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. H and I were sitting there trying not to piss ourselves laughing, because you were in there every now and then going,
Well, you were pissing yourselves laughing. It was just that you were trying not to make it obvious that you were laughing. Yeah.
And then we all got way too fucking thirsty and decided we had to leave the room.
So then we walked back down to the bar and I proceeded to get 8.
You were a fucking maniac. Here's what I want, before we go back to that section though, what I do want to say is that in this in this moment in this club, absolute consent, respect and etiquette from people in the playrooms.
Yeah, but they'd open the curtain that you'd closed, look, see there's people in there, close the curtain and walk away.
Exactly.
Yep. There was nobody ever asked a question. Nobody loitered for too long looking through there.
Yep.
There
was one person that peeked in, obviously liked what they saw, paused for a second, but not to an inappropriate level of
not at all.
pausing.
No, it was a pause for probably a second.
Yeah, like appreciation of like, that's fucking sexy, and then close the curtains and left.
But there was no real way for them to... So we could see out, kind of. They could not see in unless they opened the curtains. It's just the way the lighting was. So I understand why they were just opening the curtain to take a look in, just to make sure there was nobody in there. Or whether there was somebody in there. But, it was very respectful. Very respectful.
Very. Like the etiquette,
which was great.
The playroom etiquette was on point. Can't fault it.
Yep, I knew you were going to say on point.
On point. On point. On point. Ahead of the curve.
It's in the show notes.
Show notes. So, yes, we did head back out. We decided to get water because we're fucking thirsty.
Yeah, mainly because you started drinking at fucking 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And had gone up through a cycle of alcoholism.
We hadn't drunk at the club. I think we had maybe 2 drinks by the time.
I know, but you drank a fuck ton before you went to the club. So you went to an all-inclusive.
Yeah.
That's all-inclusive, not just inclusive, for those of you who've listened to the previous podcast.
Yeah.
It was an all-inclusive night out at a club. You decided to spend all the monies on drinking before going.
Yeah. Correct,
and then having only three, that's how many you had while you were there, 3 glasses of wine while you were there. Sorry, 4 if you include the one at dinner.
Yeah.
Which was in the club.
As we were walking out of the playroom and heading back to the main area, bar area, but how would you explain the hot tub to people listening? That was empty when we walked in. How would you explain it?
Well, it was full by the time we got back, and there were people fucking on the edge of it, blowjobs happening on the edge of it, which I'm not a big fan of, but hey, look, whatever floats your boat, I'll just stay out of the pool if you're doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you described it is heaving, because that's how you described everything that night. It was Kate's word of the new year. Yeah, so there was a lot of people there. There were a lot of bodies. It was sexy.
Yeah.
It was sexy, but it's just not my type of sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I think that would be the kind of view that they would put in a movie about it, because it was like people doing a lot of different things. Some people were sitting there drinking. Some people were fucking, blowjobs, like sexy naked bodies everywhere. You know, it was quite a nice view actually. So we end up heading back. We have some drinks. I end up calling it a night. We managed to score a shuttle bus back to the hotel. We sat in our room. We had some chips, etc., etc. That was the evening. Who would you say were there on this evening? On like, what would you say the clientele was like in terms of the demographic of people, average age, average whatever?
The average age is spot on the middle of the average age of the Netherlands, I would imagine, because there was everyone there from fucking 18-year-olds all the way through to 70-year-olds, and probably right across the bell curve as it is depicted in general everyday life. I would say the majority of people, again, because it's the Netherlands and the majority of people here are tall and relatively thin. It's the same demographic, right? That was the fit. Mr. Number One met a lady that was his height at the fucking club.
Yeah.
And now he is a big dude.
I don't know how tall he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's
tall.
Well, Mrs. Number One is my height at 6'1", so that's 186 centimeters. So she's quite tall, and he's another 3-4 inches taller than her. So, you know, another 20 centimeters taller than her. So he's a big dude, and there was a woman in there that was the same height. She was also big. Yeah, so the ranges are generally quite tall. Again, it's the Dutch population, right? So I think it was just an even split of what you'd see, just a carve out of what you see in the general everyday Dutch society. Now,
did you talk to many people at the club outside of our friends and immediate group?
I did, yeah. I talked to a few people at the bar, and because I was the bar runner for the evening.
I started out as a bar runner, but I figured I'd get my work done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was ahead
getting drunk earlier.
No, I was ahead of the curve with my work.
Ahead of the curve, really? Oh, fuck. I wonder if we've been there at any point during this podcast.
Those people that you spoke to, were they locals? Had they been to the club before?
Actually, so all over, there were quite a lot of locals, not surprisingly, but there were there were some Americans in there as well, because I heard them introduce themselves to somebody else's where they were from. Mm-hmm. There were some Poles, there were some Italians, there were some French people, so it was a bit of a mix of different cultures as well, different people from different parts of the world.
And like people that have been to swingers clubs before?
Yeah, UK obviously as well. Yeah, and the vast majority of them, I think the vast majority from my interactions had been to clubs or environments of similar nature.
So what you're saying is you owe me €100?
No, because there were... There's still, yes, okay, I'll give you €100.
So if you're, for those listening at home, we made €100 bet before we went to the club.
What about for those listening in the car? You're not talking to them.
We made a €100 bet. So many of you know or might not know, but at New Year's Eve, clubs around the world, a lot of first-timers are there. And I suggested to Daryl that I don't think we'll see this at European clubs. I think we'll see more locals.
And the only reason I don't have to pay the €100, because you said European clubs, and we've only been to one, and it's not a equivalent. You can't do N equals 1 for a European club. This is one club in Europe.
For New Year's, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, no, I know, but we're going to have to go to more before you win the 100, because you said European clubs, not this club. I'm just using a little loophole to get out of paying you €100.
Anyway, I bet Daryl that I think it would be different here than what we see in other clubs around the world for New Year's, which is a lot of newbies. And I think I win €100.
Fine, you can have it.
The cons, I would say the only thing was it's busy, but honestly, that's to be expected on New Year's. Like, you got to embrace the madness, right? Otherwise, can't fault it.
It wasn't actually horribly. We've been in more busy environments.
We could still walk around. Yep. Granted, you had to maybe weave your way through, but you could still get somewhere. Final verdict, I'm going to give it 4 black rings out of 5.
Yep, I would say the same. It was a lovely night, good people.
Great event. We had so much fun.
Yeah. The only thing that I would have improved upon is that we'd kind of missed. So the number ones we were there to hang out with as well, but we kind of missed them over the night, which was just coincidental rather than anything else. And as Kate keeps saying out loud, we were ahead of the curve and they were right on the curve. So they were in a different position for us for most of the evening. But yeah, it was, other than that, it was a spectacular evening.
It was a really fun evening. And
I'm happy we did it. And, we managed to get home before 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Because we got the bus, which was fucking empty. And it drove us straight to the door of our hotel, and we got out at, I'm going to say 1:30,
almost 2 a.m. Yeah.
By the time we got home, and then we sat around and chatted and ate a bag of chips, and then went to sleep.
Right, so that was our review and our time at the Fun4two New Year's Eve party. Really great way to bring in the new year. Podcast reviews, we don't have any new ones. If you guys want to leave us a rating and a review on your podcast app, we would absolutely appreciate that. And over to Patreon, we did have a listener email about progression that we answered very recently about progression in the lifestyle and whether the lifestyle's become more about me than Daryl. Head over and have a listen to that. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. We're going to talk about that Dutchy play session in a very fancy boudoir, and I have some interviews coming up with a BDSM book author and swing comics. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.